Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Tuesday Talk, the podcast. We are in the month of March where we are talking all things business, money, and purpose. And I have a guest here who is the money man himself, okay? His name is Ronald Richardson. He is a former banker and branch manager. So first of all, who better to talk about money with us than him? So former banker and branch manager turned financial professional and entrepreneur with a robust track record in sales and banking. Mr. Ronald Richardson, how you doing?
I'm excited to be here. Kayla, thank you for having me. I'm sorry, Coach K. Thank you for having
Okay,
me.
period.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here. I'm excited and I'm ready for this conversation. Let's do it.
I'm here for it. Listen, I think money is something that it's a conversation to be had. So I'm so glad that you decided to hop on here and share space with us. So tell us a little more about who you are, what you do, all the things.
Well, like I told you, I'm a mystery.
All right now, it's
That's
a
one of the reasons
mystery.
why that's one of the reasons why my wife married me. Nah, I'm kidding. But no, seriously, uh oof, there's so much that I do, so much I have done over the years. I'm gonna give you the short version of it. You know, as you said, I am a former banker and branch manager. So definitely was a testimony for me even coming into the banking industry. Before I did that, I was doing sales. And sales honestly isn't hard. And I
Mhm.
don't like to be called a salesperson because salespeople get such a bad rap.
That's
Um,
true.
so right, so like especially used car salesmen, right? So every time I think about a salesperson, I think about Matilda's dad, you
Oh
know,
man.
sell you the car. But that's not me. So I just say that I love to help people. So I want to help you make your purchase. I want to help you educate you on what you are looking to meet the need, right? So the reason why we purchase something is because there's something that we want or something that we need, and I'm just trying to help plug in the spaces and make it make sense to you. So transitioning into sales, from sales into banking wasn't difficult at all because you need sales skills in order to be a banker. So typically going into that industry, you start off as a teller, but I came in as a banker. So, glory to God on that.
All
Um,
right.
I was only at the company a year and a half before they promoted me to branch manager.
Wow.
So, so yeah, that was about 7 years ago, maybe
Mm.
7 years ago, 7 or 8 years ago when that happened. So I do have some history in the banking arena, and it was great for what it was and while it lasted. Last year I just started my own businesses, as you can see here.
Exit strategy.
Yep, yep. So actually I've been doing that for well, I opened it up to individuals like entrepreneurs and just regular, I won't even say regular, but just 9 to 5 individuals who wanted to get a better handle on their money.
Mm.
Um, I first started this company or this idea, honestly, with youth. So I'm a youth pastor, been a youth pastor for 6 years, going on 7. And I wanted a way to have my youth be able to be good stewards of their money, but
Mm.
it was during the pandemic, so we needed something to do. So
Yeah.
this was when we were coming back into meeting together in these spaces where we had to stand 6 feet apart. We had the stickers on the floor. Everybody had on masks, had hand sanitizer everywhere, had to check your
Yes.
temperature. So, right, it seems like it was long ago, but it was just a few years
It was
ago.
literally just a couple years ago. Yeah.
Yep. So we did that. So I initially started with just an idea and then expanded into this business where I serve um, children, teenagers, as well as adults. So it's been a great ride. And as I mentioned earlier, I am married. Been married. Next month will be 5 years.
Oh my goodness.
Month will be 5 years, and we're expecting our first child in June. So
I
we
love it. And congratulations.
Yep. So she's a little girl, so she's going to be pulling on my pocket. So I got to make sure
Mhm.
I'm financially sound and stable, that I can teach her about money, and that I don't that she doesn't have me wrapped around her finger that I'm buying her everything she wants. So
Oh,
I got
she's
to be.
gonna have you wrapped, and that's gonna be okay. You're just gonna have to deal with it because not only is she gonna be like your first child, but she's also your daughter. And I'm just telling you now, like I'm not even obviously I'm mommy. And, you know, you
Mm-hmm.
hear so much about like the daddy's girls and everything, but my little girl being my first and a girl, like she has me completely wrapped. She runs the household, and I'm okay with that. You know,
Yeah.
it just
But
is what it
it's going to teach me
is.
another level of discipline when it comes to money. I know she is.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
So
just a little
with
bit about me.
and with though, like the extra strategy challenge, I just want to tell y'all up front right now, I took that challenge last year and it was a game changer for me. Let me just say that. And I'm not going to go too far into detail because it's one of those things you really do have to just take the course and see for yourself. But every day was worth it. Every day I learned something new. And it has helped me shape it changed the trajectory like of my finances, right? Like the perspective of money is completely different after taking Ronald's exit strategy challenge. So tell us a little more like about that. Like what is an exit strategy? Why did you come up with that? Like I know you said that you kind of started it during the pandemic and it was started with the youth, but I feel like it has evolved heavily since then. So what's the purpose really behind it?
Yeah, that's a great
Yes.
question. And honestly, we can use that as a testimonial because I'm actually working on something else as relates to the exit strategy challenge for adults.
Yeah.
I'll share that with you guys a little bit later. And honestly, you will be the first ones to hear it before anybody else.
All right, man. We got an
So yeah, exclusive.
exclusive.
Breaking news, hot off the press. Um, but yeah, so that's a great question. So um literally I can just go back to when I was sitting in our living room back when we were living in an apartment. We were in a one-bedroom apartment, and my wife and I, we had some financial struggles. Even as a banker, I was having some financial struggles. So that's I'm sorry, y'all. I'm gonna give you a lot in this interview
That's all
because,
right.
but not too much. I'm gonna give you some stuff in this interview that's gonna kind of let you see the back end stuff on how things happen and work in banking. Sometimes when it comes down to banking, the person that's sitting across from you on the other side of that desk may not have 100% of their finances together.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, I was one of those people. I'm not saying that's for everybody, but it happens more often than not. And
Absolutely.
and I was especially able to see it up close and personal. And I even got to a point where I was able to help some of my teammates down the road make better financial decisions right as I grew. So I just think about when I was sitting in our one-bedroom apartment. Me and my wife had just gotten a great, strong handle on our finances. And I mean, we went from uh, having debt. I mean, I'm talking about a nice amount of debt coming into marriage with each other's debt that we had to kind of realize, okay, this is where we at. Let's have
Yes.
and to move forward. Um, but the month before we got married, my car got repossessed.
Mm.
Um, and
Not the month before the
month
wedding.
the wedding, yes. And
Oof.
the week after that, or actually within that same week, my wife lost her job. And all of this is happening a month before we're supposed to get married, right? So that just kind of lets you know where we were financially and where things were kind of heading. But of
Yep.
course, we didn't let that bother us. We still kept pushing. We still had a great time. We enjoyed each other. Um, we only spent $5,000 on our wedding, so that was a blessing because
Yes, sir.
a lot of people spend a lot of money on wedding.
I don't
Um,
think people realize how expensive weddings really are. I know I didn't until Mike and I were in the process of like planning the wedding, and I'm like,
it's expensive.
this is crazy.
Expensive. So for us to only spend $5,000 was amazing. So,
Yes,
I have a whole, and I'm just sharing a little bit of background story to lead up to answer your question.
absolutely.
Um, because I think it's important for people to know that I just didn't get here. I just didn't wake up and just become this financial person that knows all this financial stuff.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of this I've learned, and the majority of what I teach, 99.9% of what I teach, I've actually been through it myself and I've actually done it myself.
Yeah.
So yeah, so with that being said, we, the Lord blessed it that actually during that time of us leading up to our wedding date, my wife was able to get a job and she actually went back to work 2 days after our honeymoon. So we were able to go on the honeymoon, but our friends actually lent us the money to go on the honeymoon.
Ooh,
Um, so we came back. I mean, we probably had a couple $100 in our bank account, and that's it.
yeah.
So we didn't have we had one car, so it was her car, and that was kind of on its last leg. So we were trying to find another car, and it took us almost 2 months to actually find the car. So the Lord allowed us to find that car in June, which praise God, we are about to pay that car off, which is
I know
crazy.
that's right.
So that's amazing. That's a huge testimony. And we were able to save up. I mean, we were able to save up so much money in that year, staying in that 1 bedroom apartment, just being financially disciplined, keeping each other accountable, and honestly enjoying where we were. Like
Yeah.
we were really content with where we were. If we had to be there another 2 or 3 years in that basement, it was a basement 1 bedroom apartment. We would have been
Mhm.
fine because we were enjoying each other. We were fresh in our marriage. We loved each other. And on top of that, we didn't know what was going to come that next year, which was the pandemic. So even for that was a blessing for us.
Man.
In December 2019, before I received my promotion to branch manager, I said, hey, I need to pay some stuff off because the higher you get in the banking industry, your profile
Hmm.
looks good. Your credit profile needs to look good. So I said, let's go ahead and pay some stuff off. We were able to pay off just about all of our debt, with the exception of the car repossession.
From what
So,
y'all saved, from what y'all were saving in that 1 bedroom. Oh,
yep,
that's awesome.
yep. So think about it. That was over $10,000 we were able to save just
Man.
in a matter of 6 months.
Woo.
You know? And then we kind of started from scratch with our savings in January, and then we got pre-approved to buy a home in March. So
Mm,
we were thinking that we were gonna stay there at least for another year or two before we buy a house. But we were able to get pre-approved for a home in March.
wow.
Then the pandemic hits, right? Everything shuts down, and it's just crazy, So I'm sitting at home, I'm thinking we're looking for homes, but we're getting beat out on offers, and it was just a crazy time. Um, and then I saw an ad for a builder on Instagram. I reached out to him. We set up a meeting, and long story short, that was the catalyst or way that my wife and I was able to build our house from the ground up
Mm,
a year later. So that year before in March, I had a car repossession. That next year, I got pre-approved to buy a home, and in June of that same year, 2020, we were handing them a check for a deposit for them to build our house.
that is such a quick turnaround.
A quick turnaround, but it takes discipline. So while I was sitting there, I was like, how can I even express, even me being a youth pastor, what can we do, number one, and number two, how can I express to them that this does work? Like you
Yeah.
can you can be a good steward over what God gives you. If you take care of what God gives you, He'll allow you. I mean, honestly, that's a true blessing, is our discipline with what God gives us. That is a true blessing. And I think we don't give that enough credit.
Yeah.
You know, God blesses with a job for a reason. That is a huge blessing. But I say it all the time, and you've heard me say this, Coach K, is that what you don't need more money. If you can take
Oof.
care of what you have now, then that is, again, that discipline is going to be a bigger blessing to you down the road. So if
Even
God,
still now, I'm
Mhm.
sorry, but every time you say that, every time I hear you say that, even still now, it just like shakes my soul.
It's
It still shakes my soul up. It's like you don't need more money. And it's like, Pastor Ron, what are you talking about?
yeah, I do need, yeah, it's like I know I do need more money. But
Yeah.
but but honestly, if God can't trust you with a
Being
thousand
faithful over
dollars
the
a month,
few.
exactly. He's not going to trust you with making $10,000 a month if you can't manage $1,000 a month.
Absolutely.
So I said to myself, I said, well, let's give them. I want to give them a strategy.
Mm-hmm.
And I like this. I want to be able to give them a strategy for when they leave their mom's house, when they exit their mom's home. So I looked up the phrase exit strategy. I was like, oh, there needs to be an exit strategy that I can give them. I looked it up and it's a literal business term. And that's exactly what it means. It is a strategy that is giving for any type of exit that you're looking for, but typically it's for business owners. They
Mm-hmm.
have an exit strategy for the person that's going to succeed them. Um, so it basically is a plan that they have that say, hey, I'm planning on retiring when I'm, 45 or 50. I need a strategy and a plan to exit out of there and make the transition smooth. Or I need a strategy to end this business or close this business out to exit out of whatever, because it also works for people that's going under too.
Yeah.
People in companies that's about to close. Instead of closing the company, they can exit out without having to close it and sell it to someone else. So my mantra is to say, my purpose and my goal is to give you a strategy to exit out of your financial and money anxieties. So
Mm,
whatever anxieties you have about money, it is my goal to give you a strategy to exit out of those anxieties.
love
So,
that.
so long story short, that is um, how I came up with the exit strategy and how it's evolved from this evolution from just having it for kids and for youth. That
Mhm.
evolution was kind of simple. I took a similar concept of, instead of us doing a real life simulations, what we do with the kids, we have real life professionals come in,
Mhm.
um, people like yourself that would talk to them. Yep. Or I'll have a banker there, I'll have an apartment manager there, someone talking about their electric bill. So we teach them how
I
to
don't want to talk about nobody's electric bill at all.
listen. I had to call them today because it's been high as it's ever been. I was like, this is ridiculous.
Truly, truly. Need to exit
So
out of electric companies. I don't know how we're gonna do that, but at some point that needs to be a thing.
I I don't know. It just blows my mind how it could just jump up so high for a few
Yeah,
months. We don't even do anything different that we've done over the past few years. But
literally
anyway,
nothing. But go on, go on.
but anyway, so we give them the tools to be successful financially and again to be good stewards of what we give them. So it's a whole program, and I've had a lot of people come through. I've had a lot of sponsors come through to donate money to the cause. And I'm working on some big sponsorships even now. So the program is really taking off.
Mhm.
So I was like, I do want to open it up for adults and, small business owners and entrepreneurs because they need this too. And people have
Absolutely.
been asking me for it too. So a lot of the adults that volunteer for the event, they say, listen, I need this for me. Like, can you do this for me? So last year I started the Exit Strategy Challenge, which it's essentially a course, but I like to call it a challenge because it challenges you on your level for where you are. It doesn't matter if you have a lot of money or a little money. This is a challenge for you to be able to really take your finances head on and really face the music, face
Mhm.
the facts. How can we improve? How can we acknowledge where we are so we can grow and move forward?
I love that.
Yeah.
Because definitely like even taking the course you could tell how it wasn't just tailored to one group of people, you know what I mean? It was not just general knowledge because obviously you went into debt and you gave us so many tips and things to think about, but it generally applied to everybody. It's like you
Yeah.
said, whether you had a little bit of money or a lot of money, whether you were in business or just an everyday person, it was something that you could apply that day. You gave us something to do that we could do right then and there. We didn't have to, wait a month to apply what we learned. It was something that we could do immediately.
Yeah.
And I love that. And so, something I want to ask you too, because when you were telling your story about you and your wife, Cassie, that's my girl. Hey, Cassie. Um,
Shout out to my wife.
but when you were telling your story, um, the number, because like one of the top three reasons, if not the number one reason for divorce is financial battles, right?
Yes. Yes.
So I admire when you were talking about you guys enjoyed each other where you were in that time, even though finances were insane.
Uh-huh.
And so I guess I guess for the listeners, and just to kind of pick that apart is like, how do you, okay, two-part question. How do you save money since we don't need no more money? Since we don't need no more money, but you're in a tight space financially, how do you save money? Because you know, when you're in a tight space financially or things are behind, your first instinct when you get a dollar is to push that dollar back out, right? You're not
Absolutely.
thinking about saving that. You're thinking about spending it, trying to catch up, even though it's almost like a bottomless pit. So, but you were saying that y'all saved so much. So, what is a tip, or how can you, what would you say, you know, to the person who is trying to save or wants to save, but finances are just, it's too
Just not
much?
letting them. Yeah, that's another good question. So what I would recommend is this is for anybody in the audience that's listening that you know you have accounts on your credit report that's in collections.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and of course, I don't think this podcast or this conversation now kind of allows me to really go in depth about what collections is. So if you have it, you know what it is. If
Yeah.
you don't know what it is, then take my
I was
challenge
going to
and
say, take the exit strategy challenge because we
I'll
learned a
tell
lot
you,
about that too.
I'll tell you what it is. So if you have any accounts that's in collections, don't pay them. Just wait. Just wait. Because I will tell you, if you have an account that's currently in collections, and let's just use, this number of $1,000, right? This account that you owe $1,000 on is charged off, it's in collections, now it's on your credit report. If you make payments and you set up payments with that collections company, you're paying 75, $100 a month, right? And you really need that $100 a month, or you really feel like you need to save that $100 a month, then your credit score is not going to go up if you get on a payment plan with the collections, because once it gets to collections, it's too late.
It's a graveyard.
It's just a graveyard. So the only way that's going to positively impact you is if that collections is showing that it's a zero balance. So when it's paid in full, that's when it actually benefits you.
Mm.
So if you are currently on any payment plans, I mean, I recommend don't even pay on it, especially if you feel like that you can't even have any breathing room right now.
Yeah.
Because this is what they don't want to tell you or don't want you to know is that you can actually do a settlement. Um,
Mm.
now I actually, people will say, well, I thought it would look bad on your credit if you actually settle and don't pay the full amount. It really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't. And this comes from someone who I'm also a mortgage broker. So I added that to my program as well. So I can be able to teach people about mortgages and help them reach their dreams of home ownership. But typically, if you had account in collections and it's been a couple years, the underwriter will just ask you, tell me what happened at this time frame. Why was this account in collections? So then that's when you will write a letter explain what happened. So typically there's ways that you can still get what you want or get what you need and not really have to worry about, whether I have to do a settlement or not. So that would be my recommendation.
Mm.
Go ahead, you go ahead and save that money that you were going to spend, or don't stress out about it.
Yeah.
When you're able to get to it, you're able to save up a lump sum of money, you have $600 or $500 that you can call up that company and say, hey, I do have this amount of money now. I want to go ahead and pay it.
Yeah.
I don't have the full amount, but I have this amount. Can we make a settlement and we pay this? And then you take it off my credit report. So that's just one tip that I share with I do go a lot further in depth in my challenge on my course, but that is just one tip that I can give people.
Yeah.
If you follow me on social media, on TikTok and on Instagram, I'm telling you all the time that you need to budget, because when you can find ways where you can trim the fat, you
Mm-hmm.
can automatically and immediately start to save money, and you can see the difference that next month. So
Yeah.
Kayla, you might,
I was gonna
you
say that was like my biggest thing that I realized is because I was budgeting for a while, but then after a while when finances just got, you know, too much to handle, it was almost like I fell into a point where it was like, you know, what's the point of even budgeting anymore? It's like I'm budgeting and I ain't really got no money to budget. So what's the point? Like, why am I even doing this? You know? But then in the midst of taking your course, I don't remember which day it was, but I mapped out a budget again. And I kind of do mine in two parts where, I just write a list of all expenses, all monthly expenses between, both me and my husband. So it's right there, in sight, in mind all the time. Then on the other page, I create the actual budget. And I think you were saying, you could do it like monthly or per pay period or however. I find it easier for us to do it per pay period.
Yeah.
It's easier.
Manage.
Yeah, it's easier to manage.
Yep.
But it was in your course where I realized, like, even if I feel like I don't have enough, because like you said, it's how you manage it. Even if I didn't feel like I had enough, it was like, I'm going to create this budget just to see where I am. Because something that you said in the challenge that really stuck with me was make your money work for you. Make sure that every dollar is employed. Make sure every dollar has a job.
Yes.
And that was when I created the budget again, started budgeting again. And then I was like, oh, this makes sense. Like, instead of just giving up and saying, like, I'm not going to budget anymore, forget it. I'll wait until I get more money to actually budget. But then that's poor stewardship. Then it goes into, being a poor steward over your finances. Because
and you took control back of your finances.
Exactly. And so it's like, I'm just pouring out every dollar I get. So in my head, I was like, well, my dollars do have a job because every time I get one, I put it towards a bill. But it's like, are you being diligent about it? Are you being intentional about where you're putting it? And then that way you're able to budget and know what you need to, cash out for the next pay period. So it really did. It helped. It helped so much. Let me just say that. So how did you and your wife not allow the stress of finances to tear you apart during that time? So this is for the couples who may be under financial heat, and the anxiety and the stresses of money can just like really work at you individually and then come and tear you apart and get in between your space. So how did you all not let like the financial stresses tear you apart?
Love that question. I love that question. And nobody's ever asked me that before.
I just heard it when you were talking, and I'm like, I want to ask that because I did, like I said, in college, I majored in psychology. I wanted to be a marriage and family counselor. And so I had to do like a speech on whatever my topic was. And I chose, the divorce rates. And of course, money was one of the biggest reasons why couples divorce. So it all just kind of brought me back to that. So just out of curiosity, how did you?
It's one of the top 3 reasons why couples divorce. And so what we did, me and my wife, we were honest with each other, so we knew where we were. And I would say specifically for men, we have to be vulnerable when it comes down to finances. So if you're a person that can't be vulnerable or doesn't like accountability, then it's going to be difficult. So for men, again, like it's a little harder for us to be vulnerable and show our spouses like, hey, this is what I've done, or this is what I did, or this is where I'm at now. And not us wanting to feel like, or not us feeling like we've been judged, right?
Yeah.
So that's a big part of it too, is that sometimes, and this is for either husband or wife, we didn't judge each other. So my advice would be, don't judge your spouse. If you're supposed to be a team working together, you need to know that you guys are working together for a purpose and for a goal, and you're not working against each other.
Absolutely.
There's no such thing as keeping score in our marriage. Me and my wife, we don't keep score. We don't keep tally or record of, oh, well, I did this, and this was you, and this was you. So this is your fault, and you're the problem. No, that's not how we approached it. We took an assessment of where we were individually, and now we're coming together as one. And we constantly have to do this because finances are always changing, because the economy is always changing.
Absolutely.
So we constantly and consistently have to say, okay, this is where we are now. What are we going to do to progress forward? It's not what I am going to do, but what are we going to do?
Yeah. How can we do this as a team?
How can we do this as a team? We might have an individual task that we do, okay, well, you handle this and I'll handle this over here. But that was an agreement that we both came together and decided. So we really wanted to make sure that we knew that we were both for each other and we were both on each other's team. And we were open to each other's accountability.
Mm.
So it was actually a little bit easier. Once we were on the same page, it was actually easier because it's like, okay, do I really need to eat out? You know, and my wife has food at home, or she's gonna be cooking tonight, or I need to make sure I bring my lunch, or she say, well, hey babe, make sure you take your lunch because we're not eating out this week, or so things like that is what is what helped us keep on track. We had a goal and we stayed focused on that goal. So once two people are really on the same page and you're bought into it, it doesn't matter how little or how much you have, as long as you're on the same page, that's the biggest thing that matters.
That's so
And
good.
and for those that you're not where you want to be financially, you're not going to find contentment with where you are unless you decide that you're going to be content where you are. I know it sounds, but you have to make a decision. You have to make
Yes.
a decision to find contentment and pleasure and satisfaction with where you are. And it needs to be a pleasure, and it needs to be a privilege that you can say, I get the opportunity to go through this journey financially with my spouse and nobody else.
Yeah.
So when you take on that mentality, if I could use this, that is us against the world,
Mm.
there's nothing that you can't do. You're
Yeah.
unstoppable. So no, it takes two people. It takes two people. And it has to be that. It has to be both parties, both individuals
All in.
wanting to be, fall in line and wanting to be on the same page. If you want to, you have something to work with, then everything else is going to take care of itself. And then you'll find yourself being more creative when it comes down to date nights and not feeling like you have to go to the expensive restaurants.
Right.
You find yourself at home on a Friday night on the couch, eating popcorn, dressing up the living room real nice,
Mhm.
with stuff that you already have. Again, being creative. And that goes a long way. And those are moments that you'll never forget.
Mm. That is so good. Mm. I think that doing it together is really, really, it's definitely the key,
Mhm.
because even like in the beginning of marriages, like you still come into it to a certain degree with the mentality of like, okay, let me rewind. Because when you when you get married, you become one. That's what it's supposed to be. But that's one in like every aspect, right? And I think there's still portions of us who go into the marriage like in the beginning and you're still like, okay, these are my bills, those are his bills, and this is what it is. But when you are a team, if one person is struggling financially, it's almost inevitable that you're going to cash out to help that person. So it's like when one of us is down, we're both down. It's not
Yes.
like you're down and out and I'm up.
And it's good that you said that.
Because,
'Cause
yeah,
that's I'm sorry to cut you off, but
go ahead.
I need to mention that is because what we did is we put our finances together.
Yeah.
And we didn't have separate, there's no separate accounts. We have our check going into one account, and then we split up from there with, our bill account, our spending account, our savings account, things like that. But we are all on the accounts together so we can see what we're doing and not spying on each other. But again, it's that so we have a plan and we're executing this plan. It's hard to do it when things are divided.
Yeah.
Hard to do it when things are separate. Now, I do tell people and share it with people what worked for us, and that's what we did. But I also say, hey, it can work if you keep things separately because I've seen people do that too. But if you're a person that you struggle and you've you've struggled with being honest in the past, maybe you don't need your own account. Maybe you do need a joint account.
Need that accountability.
You have that accountability, right? So if you're an honest person and you're open book and and your spouse can have access to your account so they can see it, or they trust you because you have been honest, then that's okay. But sometimes if you're in a rut, or if you are at that place early on, it may not be a good idea for you. You might not be at that place yet. You
Yeah.
can graduate to that place if that's what you want to be, but you know it's important for you to be together even on those accounts because it makes things just a whole lot easier, whole
Man,
lot simpler.
that's so good. So did you guys tackle everything? And this is another thing, right? It kind of goes back to the question of like, when you're in a financial bind, it's hard to save, or people believe that it's hard to save, right? This kind of aligns with that question when you and your wife were getting out of this rut. Did you guys focus on everything all at once, or did you single-handedly pick, okay, this is the bill that we're going to tackle and try to get under control, then we'll move on to this one, and then we'll move on to this one? Or like, what kind of is your advice in that aspect then?
So you can,
Or what worked for y'all?
so what worked for us was not, we didn't do that, but that does work though.
Okay.
I've 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 done that with myself individually. She's done that with herself individually even before we got married, so we know that that works. But when we got married, we didn't necessarily take that route.
Okay.
What we did is we just saved money. So, our credit, both our credit at the time was not great. It was trash, to be honest with you. So it's like if we both have, a lot of, or we have both have a collections accounts on our credit reports, we didn't really have any positive credit, building our credit. Our focus was just saving money and enjoying this first part of our marriage.
Yeah.
So we focus on saving a particular dollar amount. Um, Again, because we were thinking, okay, if we could save $10,000, let's say the total amount of our debt was $10,000. I don't remember what it was, but let's say it was $10,000. If we can save $10,000, then maybe we can just settle between the two of us and only really have to pay
Yeah.
$6,000 settlement, and then we net $4,000 that we can actually save.
Wow.
So that was our approach and that was our mindset. So that's what we did. Everybody doesn't have to take that route. The route that you mentioned actually does work, where you can break it down and say, hey, and honestly, the route that you said works best for people that does have open lines of credits that don't have any collections. It is best
Yeah.
that you work from there and say, hey, I don't want this to go to collections to start with, or I don't want this to be charged off. So what I need to do is handle this immediately.
Right.
So what we will do is you know, we will take this piece by piece. We will handle um paying more on this credit card bill, or I don't want to give too much, but you can do the snowball effect.
Yeah.
You can work your way up. You can use the avalanche effect, which is another paying down credit or paying off debt rather. That's another method that you can use. Again, I don't want to share too much, but
Not too much. Not too much. Not too much. They got to
but,
see for themselves.
but yeah, but you can use those methods which you're mentioning though, that they can actually be successful. But those are more so again with those that need immediate attention.
Mhm.
Our things didn't really need immediate attention on our collections or on our credit report
That
because
makes
they're,
sense.
yeah.
That makes sense. So pretty much just like what works for you or wherever you are financially, just tailor the advice to where you are to fit,
Uh-huh.
your budget. That's
Yep.
good. So the big question, faith and money,
Ooh.
okay? Because there are so many myths around money, and then
Uh-huh.
there's so many myths around money in like the Christian community. There are so many myths about money in general. And so with you being, former banker, branch manager, and now exit strategy challenge, and you like your whole career is money, and you're also a youth pastor. Explain to the people why and how money and faith coincide.
Ooh. Yeah, you asking good questions today.
But
I
we
love
gotta unpack it. We just gotta unpack it. That's what I'm here to do.
I love this. I love this. So I don't have a problem in saying that my first day when I teach people, we talk about purpose. We don't even talk about the tricks and tips
That was like one of my favorite days.
of money. It's my favorite day. I always love day one because we talk about purpose. And I'm a big advocate of you serving your purpose.
Mhm.
When you serve your purpose, the money will come.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
that's what I teach, and that's what I tell people. If you can, and I'm actually writing a book that's going to be releasing this year,
Hey.
and it's actually challenging us on purpose. So it's talking about purpose and money, and how that lines up with our faith and finances, right?
Wow.
So some things that I will even talk about in the book is what I'm sharing with you now, just about the history of money. Where does money even come from? Why do we even need it? You know? So if we can dissect and figure out what the history is of money and of finances and of these riches and gold or whatever, which is called currency, then let's look at, okay, how has it evolved from what its main intention was supposed to be to where we are now in our Western culture, in our economy in the United States of America.
Yeah.
So the history tends to repeat itself, right? That's the old saying. So if we can understand and learn history and understand the reason behind it and the why behind it, if we can get back to its original intent, then it helps me to further and deepen me and my purpose, to the point where I don't stress out about money.
Mm.
When you're not stressing out about money, honestly, that's when the money starts rolling in.
That is so true. That's so
That's when
true.
it starts, that's when it starts coming in. The richest man in the history of the world, King Solomon, you know, we always talk about his wealth and his finances, and how people paid him for his wisdom. So there are principles that the Bible teaches.
Goals.
Say what?
I said goals. King Solomon is goals. People pay you for
Ex-
your wisdom. Amen.
exactly. People come to Coach K for what you bring. They come
Yeah.
for your wisdom. They come for your knowledge. Um, they come for the anointing and the spirit of God that rests on your life.
Receive that.
Now, now, some people might say, especially in the Black church, well, I don't have to pay you for that. I don't need to pay you for the Holy Ghost. I don't need to pay you for the Holy Spirit, whatever you call. I don't have to pay you for that. I should be able just to receive that from you. But
Keep
again,
digging. Keep digging.
if we go back and we look at Solomon, there was people that was paying him for his wisdom, but that wisdom came from God.
Mm-hmm.
So again, everybody is not gonna, and I want to say this: once you operate and work in your purpose, the money is gonna come. Everybody is not called to preach on a platform. You know, everybody's not called to preach on a Sunday morning or to be an elder, minister, bishop, or preacher or whatever, a pastor. Everybody is not called to that. Some people really are called to. They're really great at math, and God has given them that gift, and they are supposed to be an accountant.
Yeah.
How is that purpose any different from a pastor that's preaching on Sunday morning, that
Mm.
that is praying for you, that is, giving you a good word that you need for the week?
Yeah.
Their assignments are different, but they're still serving a purpose. So if someone is paying me for my mathematical skills and how I'm able to maneuver through these taxes or these accounting, I just have a mind for it. I can do it easy. That is my calling, and that's the purpose on my life. If I can take it a step further, even in my accounting firm, even when those clients come to me, how am I serving them that I can even show Jesus through my work?
Wow.
So if we take the mindset so much off of a finance and a dollar amount, and this is coming even from the consumer standpoint,
Mhm.
again, asking that question, why do I need to pay for, someone who's anointed or someone's advice or whatever? It's got to cost you something. It's going to cost you something. It's going to cost you something. So if I could take it a step further, in this accounting firm that I'm using as an example, this accounting firm, I need to be so wrapped up in my purpose that I don't even have to explain why I'm here.
Jesus.
I need to be so wrapped up in what I bring to the table, what God has called to come out of me,
Mhm.
to exist in the work that I'm performing and serving you with. So I know it sounds, for some people it might sound foreign, but that's really what, when you search the principles of the Bible, that's really what it teaches.
Yeah.
It teaches us that we are not so much of money hungry or money driven, but again, once we operate in that purpose, once we find out and figure out what the purpose is, then it's going to change our whole perspective about your money and your finances and income. It's going to change your whole perspective because now I'm not operating from a place of I have to go to this job to for a paycheck. Now I'm operating from a place of true purpose, true identity, knowing that there's a group of people that I've been assigned to serve. And I need to serve those individuals with the anointing that God has given me, with the insight that God has given me, with the downloads and wisdom that God has given me. And what you're doing now, you're just using the money as a service of exchange for what I have.
Right.
That's all you're doing. You're just using that money for an exchange. You're using that money because money is a tool. Once you understand money is a tool, then we can apply that principle of, again, going back to Solomon, we can apply that principle where he asked God for wisdom for anything. He could have asked God for anything in the world.
Anything.
He did. He could have asked him for anything he wanted in the world. He could have asked, and God, I'm sure he would have honored it. But the Lord said that because you asked for this thing, I'm going to give it to you. And you're not going to have to worry about anything else in your life. You're going to be one of the richest people that ever lived.
Jesus.
He said, and that was his heart. That was his heart.
That's what I was about
So
to say, because he could have asked for money.
he could have asked for money. And so I challenge anybody watching this that if you are struggling with faith and finances, and if you think it doesn't coincide, I would challenge this, ask God to give you an introspective look at your heart.
Mm.
Again, you don't have a money problem. Maybe you have a heart problem. Maybe
Oh.
that's the issue. Maybe that's the issue. We again we see Solomon coming to pray to the Lord, and Solomon says he's a new king. He hasn't done this before. He said, I need you to give me wisdom. I need you to give me the spirit to be able to judge people correctly and to be able to judge
Yes.
people right. So because Solomon had a heart for service and he inquired God for his wisdom, for that godly wisdom, God gave him the wisdom. And in turn, that wisdom gave him the money.
Amen. That
So
is so
that's
good.
so that is my challenge to anybody that's having an issue with this idea of faith and money can't coexist. Maybe you have a heart problem. That's what God is trying to fix in you.
Yeah. And like when you said money is a tool, it is a kingdom resource.
Mm-hmm. It's not the source, it's the resource.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And I think like where the myth comes from, right? The whole money is the root of all evil. And then you said it's not necessarily that money is the problem, it's a heart problem.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have good people with money, and then you also have bad people with money. You have people who will do anything, compromising faith, compromising morals, all of that to make money.
Yeah.
And that is the root of the evil, not necessarily, the money. It's like you and I, like me and somebody else could have the same dollar, but my heart is postured in something completely different than what their heart is postured in.
Yeah. And that brings up a good point because the scripture talks about it says that the love of money is the root of all evil. And
All
for some
right.
reason, and for some reason we like to say or we like to think that all money is evil and to have money, if you have a lot of money, that you are arrogant, you're wicked. I mean, we need to be honest, like we need money to buy stuff,
Yeah.
buy food so you can eat, so you can live and survive. You need money. Let's
If
just
you
be
don't
honest.
carry out the purpose that God gave you, you need nourishment.
You need money. You need nourishment. You gonna need money. Like people think that they try to make it seem like we don't need money, but you need money. Like that's how things operate. And unfortunately, it's getting to be to the point where, I won't say it's getting to be to the point, it's been like this for a while, that money's a game.
Mhm.
It really is. And once you learn how to play the game, it works out in your favor. So
that was another thing that you said in the exit strategy challenge that kind of got me to look at money different. You know, like when you're in a tight spot, you look at money as like, this is all that I need. Like if I could just have this, you know, it starts to become an idol. It starts to become like a nourishment for you, right? Money becomes like, I need this, as
yep.
opposed to a tool, something that you use, as opposed to like when you start looking at money as a game, it's like, not saying that it don't mean, you know, anything, but you start looking at it like, all right, so this dollar really don't, it's really not all that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just playing the game. And so
It's
when
not.
you take the pressure off of the way you look at money, that was also my biggest challenge. You challenged my perspective on that. And that was a really big game changer. It's like stop looking at it as a dire necessity and start looking at it as like, okay, you know, it's here, and
Yeah.
you know, I needed to do a couple things, but you know, it's like, how can I play this game? How can I make this fun?
Yeah.
Like even stretching your math skills, stretching the way that you budget, stretching, challenging yourself financially. It's like, how can I make this work in a different way?
Yeah.
And
And it's
so
like
taking
I,
that
I feel
pressure off.
I feel like it's also like anything you can relate it to anything in life.
Mhm.
That's why again when we talk about gifts, um, there's statistically it's been proven recently. I think maybe Forbes did a study on it back in 2022, maybe, um, just about individuals that's out of school now, right?
Yeah.
Um, Millennials that, you know, which we're millennials, we make up the large portion of the workforce now,
Yeah.
you know, which is crazy to say. Like we are the parents, we are our parents now. So we,
Throwing the cookouts, we plan the
yeah,
Thanksgivings and things. Yeah.
supposed to be the responsible ones, but
Help
but
us, Lord.
please Jesus. But there's a lot of millennials. Um, I believe I want to say maybe in the 40 percentile that they haven't had this type of teaching in schools, and it would have been beneficial to them. Um, if we would have focused more on this rather than polynomials or whatever it's called, or
Exactly, whatever it's called.
you know, which it has its place, right? But if we would have focused a little bit more on these things that we're going to use every single day,
Life skills.
life skills, being financially sound, learning how to make wise financial decisions, learning things about business funding. Why can't we learn about that in high school? Why can't we teach that to our high school students? You know,
Yes.
I being a youth pastor, I tell the youth and their parents that college isn't for everybody. It's
Absolutely.
not. But I want to be able to give you the tools to make an educated decision and even help you lean into more of the direction of what your purpose is, so you don't waste time.
Yes.
Granted, it all is calculated in the grand scheme of things. God calculates it all. So it's for a purpose, it's for a reason. But maybe God is leading you to do something now. He's leading you in that direction to do it now as an 18-year-old rather than a 28-year-old.
Yeah. Mm-mm. That's good.
So yeah.
Wow. That was so good. Y'all, if y'all want to hear more, y'all just gonna have to join his challenge. And that's all I really have to say, because I'm not gonna take up any more of this man's time. Because I can sit here and ask him a million more questions, but
But
all in
I love it. I
all,
love all the questions. I want y'all to ask me questions. I don't say beg, but I want y'all to ask me questions because I want to be able to educate people. And it's
it's
my it's,
purpose.
it's my purpose to serve.
It's a
It's my
purpose.
purpose to serve.
Absolutely. Tell the people where they can find you on the social medias and how they can get in contact with you, how they can sign up for the Extra Strategy Challenge, or how they can find out what's next for Extra Strategy.
Yes. Okay. So you can find me on Facebook at Ronald Richardson II. I am the second. If you find Ronald Richardson and there's no Roman numerals afterwards, then you probably found my dad, and he has like 3 Facebook profiles because he couldn't remember his password. So he had to create new ones. So that's not the one you want to follow. Okay. People say we look alike, but that's not me. Ronald Richardson II on Facebook. So you can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram or at Ronald K. Richardson. You can find me on TikTok at Ronald K. Richardson. So my dad doesn't have either one of those, so that will be me. So Instagram at Ronald K. Richardson and on TikTok at Ronald K. Richardson. So you can find me on those social media platforms. And I actually will be releasing some information next week about the next exit strategy challenge, but I'm going to share it with you now. Okay.
Uh-oh.
I don't know when this episode is going to air, but this is probably going to air before I make my official announcement. So it's exclusive and you're hearing this first. So before I would do the exit strategy challenge, and it's a week long, it's 5 days. I've switched it and I've tailored it to where you're going to get me for 5 weeks.
Ooh.
You got me for 5 weeks.
There's
So
no reason why you should come out of 5 weeks in the same position.
there's no reason.
Because just the 5 days helped me switch a lot of things.
And the 5 days were intense. I mean, I ain't gonna
Yes.
lie, like it's a lot of information. So
Yeah.
this is what I'm gonna do. Um, I'm doing it for 5 weeks. It's gonna start up the last week in May, or I'm sorry, March. Since we have 5 Sundays, it's gonna start the last week in March. So we're gonna do 5 weeks. You're taking this journey with me. I'm taking this journey with you, but I'm gonna do Zoom calls live just one day a week.
Mhm.
And it's going to be recorded, so I'll upload it so you can see it. But I'm going to give you videos throughout the week. So I'll give you about 2 videos each week. I'm going to send you text message notifications about homework. So I'm going to give you homework assignments. I'm going to help you keep track so you can have that accountability. So if you don't have that person that can hold you accountable financially, I'm going to be that person. I'm going to
Mhm.
text you your videos so you can make sure that you watch them. So I'm going to give you this information that you are not going to get anywhere else. And you can ask me any question throughout those 5 weeks. I'm going to keep you on track. And again, I call it a challenge because we're going on a journey together. So it has a point A to a point Z and all the middle stuff in between. All right.
Love it.
So I'm also starting an exclusive group. Now, this is for everybody. So Kayla, you can join as well, Coach K. It's going to be a Patreon that's going to be completely free. The Patreon is going to be free for individuals, and I'm going to actually upload information on there that, again, you're not going to get it anywhere else. So a part of my purpose, again, and what I love to do is I love history. So
Yeah.
again, I'm going to give you some more history about money to make things make sense about what's happening now, right?
Mm.
So that's going to be real fun. It's going to be interesting. So I really love studying the history of money and of finances and how that relates to what we see now. How do we get here? Why are we here? What's the effects of it? What happened 60 years ago when the same thing happened? And that can also help you predict stuff in the economy in the future.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm gonna be sharing in my Patreon, and you're not going to want to miss it. It's free. So you better catch it while it's free.
Period.
All I got to say. That's all I got to say. Now, the 5 week challenge is not free. Um, that's going to be at a cost, and I'll share that a little bit later. But the Patreon is going to be free. You better catch it while it's free because it's going to be some good information. It's going to be information you want, information you need, and it's going to be stuff that you didn't even know you needed until you found out, oh, I need it.
Yeah, that was me. That was
Mhm.
me in the exit strategy. I was like, I'm tired of being in the same place, and maybe I just don't know enough. Like that's always my that's kind of always my mindset anyway. It keeps me open to being a student and
Yeah.
to continue learning because if you stop learning, you're pretty much stuck in life.
Yeah.
And I was just like, okay, I need something different. I need a fresh perspective on financials because I've invested in everything except my finances, which is
And
crazy, right?
why wouldn't you?
Right. Why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I? Because in my head, it's like, how can I invest in my finances if I don't have enough finances to invest in my finances? Make
Right.
it make sense.
So, but here's the thing. The woman who who went to the prophet, right?
Yeah.
Um, and she was like, listen, I the tax collectors are coming, and I don't have any money. So what did he tell her to do? Get vessels, fill them with oil.
Mm.
or even borrow from your neighbors. And she wasn't without oil. The oil kept coming. Oil
Wow.
kept flowing. It kept going. It kept coming. So she got what she needed when she thought she didn't have anything. She didn't really have much. So she took what she had and she was able to multiply it. Because she followed the words of the prophet. She stepped out on faith. And the Lord, he exceeded the needs. So
Yes.
if if I were to say, hey, your dollar, it's your last dollar that you have, you give me that dollar, and then I'm gonna share a piece of information with you that's gonna make you $100.
Mm.
You do it?
Hell, you put it like that.
Yeah, you would do it. Right. So
It's a
that's
no-brainer.
no brainer. It's a no-brainer. But I also like people to know too, um, it's not gonna happen overnight.
Yeah.
For some people, it does happen a little faster than others. But I like to say, uh, the taller the building, the deeper the foundation. So sometimes you got to dig a little bit longer because you're gonna go further because your building is gonna be higher. But everybody's different, but it doesn't happen overnight. There's no such thing as a get rich quick. There's no
Yeah.
such thing. As quick as you can get it, you can lose it.
And just
So
like with anything that you learn, it only works when you apply it.
only works when you apply it. So results may vary.
Yep. Results vary because it only works if you apply it. So always remember that. Ron, I just want to thank you again for
Welcome.
coming on here, blowing the podcast up with the financials, the myths, the tips, the everything. Thank you so much for sharing space with us. And this is something that is extremely needed. I feel like this is a market that is not tapped into. So I know that I know that I know that God is really going to make this a big thing for you. Because again, it's so necessary. It's so necessary. And thank you for walking in obedience. Thank you for stepping boldly into your purpose and seeing it all the way through. And just keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you for having me. I receive all of it, and I believe it. And when the Lord does it, I'm gonna come back and say, hey, the word you spoke, I'm living in
Yeah.
it. I'm
I'm
living
like, I know.
it. Yeah, but thank you for having me. This was fun. I love it.
Absolutely. Well, you guys, if you were listening and you got some great information, first of all, I hope you had your notebook out because you know when you listen to my podcast, you got to have your notebook and your pen out every time. But even still, I feel like you guys received something today that you can also apply today. And whatever that is for you, write that down and start working on it. And that is our only advice. And I will talk to you guys next week.